Welcome to Sprinkle with Hope podcast with your host, Jason. And we have an amazing guest with us today, Jane Wenning. Jane Wenning is a certified medical technologist with a degree in clinical laboratory science. She is an athletic trainer and a health mentor who has been helping women improve their mental and physical health for over 20 years. During high school and college, she was overweight, struggled with eating disorders, and had low self esteem and brain fog. Obtaining a degree in clinical laboratory science and working with athletes, Jane merged these two worlds together to create a structured wellness plan focused on four pillars: recovery, emotional energy, nutrition, and movement. Outside of her degree, she has spent hundreds of hours learning about nutrition, longevity, brain health, sleep interval training, fasting, epigenetics, and estrogenics. She now equips women and some men with the tools to transform into healthier and stronger versions of themselves to live life with vitality. Thank you, Jane, for joining us. Really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be an awesome discussion. I love talking about these kinds of subjects. Getting into fasting and different things and how they affect the body. I think that's totally part of having hope and moving forward in life. That's a huge part of it, right? And sleep affects just about every aspect of our lives. So let's dive right into this and talk about some of these subjects.
Okay. So, like you said, I reached a very low point for 10 years, and I hit rock bottom when I was in college. And that was a place where I felt very hopeless. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like anything about myself. I didn't open my circle to anybody, and I didn't let anyone, or I didn't enter anyone else's circle.
Mm.
So I was very isolated and really thought I was completely unlovable. So I was at a point where I felt very hopeless. And then I had kind of an aha moment and realized that I have this knowledge with my clinical laboratory science degree and with my athletes. And I merged those two worlds and transformed not only my body, but transformed my mind as well. And I built up so much hope that it has almost become like a shield of armor.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like nothing can break that hope in me now, because when I start to feel weak, I look back at each one of my pillars and I say, which one of these pillars is not strong?
Mm-hmm.
And then I fortify that pillar, and I've got my shield in place, and I'm living with hope.
I love that analogy that you have built this fortress or this shield that will fight off anything that has been you've struggled with in the past. I love that. So Jason and I love quotes. I'm going to quote you really quick here. When you love who you are, you become healthy, strong, and unstoppable. This is true transformation, body and mind. This is the gift I want to share. So that was a quote that you, Jane, share. And we love talking about the body and mind. I love the mind because I think it's so powerful. So walk us through one of these, the pillars. So let's talk about recovery. What do you mean by that, and how can people fortify their shield?
Okay. So recovery, a big part of recovery is sleep. And we not only as a society don't get enough sleep, but we don't get quality sleep. So even though you might be in bed for 6 or 7 hours, you might be going to bed later or earlier in the morning. So you're not getting the quality sleep that your body needs.
Mm-hmm.
So sleep is a big piece of it, but there's also other recovery components that you can take advantage of. A lot of people may have a massage, and that is a great way to let your body recover, because we put our bodies through so much every day that we need to work some of that tension, some of that stress, and some of those toxic fluids out of our body. And so massage, whether it's somebody giving you a massage or whether it's the myofascial massage with the foam roller, that's a great form of recovery. Recovery also can be hydration, because when our bodies aren't hydrated, they can't function properly. They can't detoxify. So hydration is a big piece of recovery. And then also being outside, the sunshine, producing that, getting that sunshine on your skin, in your eyes to produce vitamin D. That is a huge piece of recovery because it resets your circadian rhythm so that you can get that better sleep at night. So sleep is a big piece, but there's a lot of other components to recovery as well.
Yeah. So for someone who personally struggles with sleep, I feel like I don't sleep very well at all. I'm tossing and turning. What are some things that I can do to improve that?
Okay. So the first thing that I would tell you is try and keep a normal sleep cycle, a normal sleep schedule, like within 1 hour at night going to bed and 1 hour waking up in the morning. And you know what? Do this, Shane. Try to put together a evening routine. You know, if you have kids, we put together an evening routine so their body kind of knows it's supposed to shut down and go to sleep. So if you want to be in bed at 10 o'clock, reverse engineer a schedule so that at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, you're giving your body those cues. Wow, it's time to wind down. And then keeping that solid schedule. And I would recommend being in bed before 11, because between 11 at night and 2 in the morning is when our body goes into deep sleep. And deep sleep, it goes in and out of deep sleep, but deep sleep is where your muscles are repaired and your brain detoxifies. Your brain actually shrinks down and expands, and it pushes toxins out of your brain. It kind of like a sponge, it kind of flushes things out. So sleeping between those hours is super important. The other thing that I would tell you is get sunshine on your eyes and on your skin early in the day, just 10 or 15 minutes. That again will help reset your circadian rhythm. And then another good habit to get into at the end of the night is stop eating 3 hours before you go to bed, because that gives your body time to digest. You cannot digest and rest are both parasympathetic activities, but you can't do both of them well at the same time. So think about it on the sympathetic side, you have flight or freeze. So if you're scared by something, you either freeze or you run, but you can't do both at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
So the same thing is true on the parasympathetic side, which is rest and digest. You cannot rest and digest at the same time. So stop eating 3 hours before you go to bed. And this is an important one too, is shut off the technology an hour or two before you go to bed, because that blue light does crazy, crazy things.
Yeah.
I'm sure it does. And those are some really great tips, I think, to helping us, not only just our overall wellness, but helping us to sleep better. Those were fantastic. And I like the way that you put it, rest and digest. That was pretty cool. So let's talk about that emotional energy, because sometimes I think we, maybe don't take that side of it as serious because it's not something that you can physically see, our emotional side. So could you talk about our emotional energy and kind of how we take care of ourselves emotionally as well?
Yes, absolutely. The hard thing with emotional energy is it's not like a broken leg where it happens immediately and you can see it from the outside and you know how to fix it. Emotional energy comes on very subtly and very slowly, unless you have some event that causes anger or, huge emotion like that. But for the most part, emotional energy and the negativity comes on very slowly. So it's hard to see, but over time you feel pulled down and just not yourself. So then going back, awareness is a huge key to understanding your emotional energy, and going back and understanding, what am I feeling and why am I feeling? Your brain loves to solve problems. So when you can take it from the emotional state and put it into a problem solving state, then you can enhance your emotional recovery. Some other tips I like to give people when they are feeling negative: turn that around and journal or just come up with things that you are grateful for, because you cannot be grateful and negative at the same time. You cannot be forgiving and angry at the same time. So take whatever emotion it is that you're feeling and turn it around and do the opposite.
Yeah, I love that. I love the thought that we just flip that negative emotion on its head and kick it out and turn it into something positive. That's an important thing. I love that.
It's a practice though. It doesn't happen right away.
Yeah.
It takes practice, but you have to have that awareness piece first to understand what you're feeling and then why you're feeling it. And then you flip it around.
Yeah, that is true. So in your studies, have you found that it's more difficult for people to focus on their body or their mind? And if so, like how do you see the difference in that struggle that some people have with either of those?
I find it's, boy, it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Right? So people look in the mirror and they see themselves, and there's so much noise in our society on social media or, whatever it is, telling us that we shouldn't like ourselves. We shouldn't like ourselves the way they are, because every time you flip on the TV, you've got diet pill commercials and you've got fat melting supplements and you've got cosmetic surgery, so it tells us, it implants these seeds in our brain that tell us that we are not good enough. And then when we look in the mirror, it seems like that's solidified. No matter what we look like, we never feel like we're good enough.
Yeah.
And so being able to be happy with where you are, but know that you can change yourself. So true transformation starts in the mind. And when you can tell yourself, you know what, I don't maybe like this or this part about me physically, but I have the ability to change that. And I can become a better version of myself. It just has to start mentally.
Yeah. Jane, I love that you talked about the noise, because we talk about that a lot, that there is a lot of physical noise that's going on around us, but also mental and emotional noise that's going on inside of us. What are some tips that we can do to change that noise or reduce it or eliminate it, to get rid of those things around us?
You know what? I love that. Those automatic negative thoughts, they run through your head like your favorite song.
Yeah.
So being aware when you are having, they're called ants, being aware that you have these ants, and stop yourself and say, okay, where did this thought come from? Was this a conversation that I had with somebody that I'm replaying and replaying over in my mind? And how do I let that go? And I find that the best way to crush those ants is to journal. You journal your feelings, you get them out, or you find a really close friend and you just purge out those ants.
Yeah.
And they don't have to say anything back to you. You just need to dump and maybe feel validated in your feelings. And then once you are, then you can move on. But again, Shane, being aware and then saying, wow, I keep having these negative thoughts, and doing something about it is a big piece of managing your mental self.
Yeah, that's really cool. I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about, what you've learned about fasting. Cause I've done some of my own kind of studies, and I've listened to various different podcasts with different, doctors and whatever, talking about fasting and how it's helpful. And, there's different ways to fast, right? You can fast all day, or you can do, different kinds of fasting techniques. So can we talk about that a little bit and kind of how that helps on the nutritional side of things, and what you found to be helpful when fasting and different techniques?
Sure. Okay, so you're right. There are a lot of different ways to fast, and not everybody should fast. But if you do want to try fasting or getting into it, the best time to fast is overnight, of course, because you're sleeping.
Yeah.
So that really, starting with a 12-12, and I like to call it a compressed eating window. Some people eat from the time they get up in the morning until the time they go to bed at night, and that's not compressed at all. So if you stop eating after your evening meal and then wait 12 hours to eat again, that is a great way to start a fast. There are a lot of health benefits. Apoptosis is one of them, or autophagy, where your cells, I think of it as deadheading a plant. So you have a nice plant and part of it starts to die, but because you keep feeding this plant energy, you feeding it whatever fertilizer and nutrients, it keeps trying to bring that dead part of the plant back to life. You see one little leaf growing or maybe one little flower there, but it's not, it's actually sucking more energy from the plant. So in autophagy, what happens is your body is the same way. When we overfeed it, some of these cells that shouldn't be hanging around, they get just enough energy to hang on. But when you go through a fast, your body is so smart that it says, wait a minute, we're not going to have enough energy to keep this unproductive piece alive. So we're just going to get rid of it. So it's like deadheading cells in your body. And that's what fasting does. It allows the energy that you're consuming to feed and nourish your healthy cells and not keep any of these junk cells alive. You don't want to keep the junk cells alive, because if they get enough energy, they will become very bad actors in your body. And you want to stay away from that. So that's where fasting is really good. And then starting with a 12-12 fast, and then moving to a 16 where you fast and 8 hours where you have a compressed eating window. What I find people make the mistake of doing is that in their eating window, they eat anything they want.
Yeah.
That's not really the point. So the first thing I would tell somebody before they're going to do a fast is get your nutrition in line. Start eating real food instead of overly highly processed food and a lot of junk food and packaged food. Get your nutrition in line. So, and what I mean by real food is food that has grown from the ground or that at one point in time had a face. That is real food.
Yeah.
And when a majority of your diet consists of real food, then you are ready to move into a fasting stage. Yeah. And then you can start with the 12-12 and eventually move to the 16-8. And some people they take one day as a 24-hour fast, which is also beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this discussion. I think you have a lot of really interesting insight. I think your last pillar is movement. So I'm guessing that has to do with the body. Now we've talked a lot about the mind. So let's talk about that.
Yes. Okay. So your body is designed to move and it loves to move. Kids, they move all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't like to use the word exercise or workout because they have such a negative connotation behind them.
Yeah, they
so
do.
I like to call it play. Put some play in your day. How are you playing today? Is playing just going for a walk and maybe when nobody is looking, you start skipping? That's great. But maybe play is just going for a walk, because walking is very, very beneficial on your body. For people that like to get a little more out of it, I like to talk to my clients about doing a full body weight cardio set. And it doesn't have to be real long. I've got videos that are between 8 and 16 minutes long, but doing something to increase your heart rate also gets all your happy hormones flowing. And then if you can do this outside, if you're going for your walk outside, it's just, you're just getting a ton of benefit there. So trying to combine some of these pillars and doing your movement while you're outside getting sunshine is getting big bang for your buck. But the movement piece, putting play in your day, however you like to play. A lot of people will ask me, well, what's the best exercise to do? And I say, you know what? The best exercise to do is the one that you will do consistently.
Mm,
And
yeah.
then I also have this, I don't know if you'd call it a motto, but you can quote me on this one. The 3 C's: consistency, creativity, and compassion. If you want to put movement in your day, just be consistent. And maybe it's not 7 days a week, but maybe consistency might be 10 minutes, 5 days a week. That might be where you start. And that's a great place to start with consistency. Now, life happens, and life can happen really quick. And all of a sudden you're going to bed and you're like, dang it, I didn't get in my 10 minutes of movement today. I don't want you to jump out of bed and do it. But the next day, I want you to think creatively. How do I get that 10 minutes in? And then if it didn't happen, again, give yourself some compassion, give yourself some grace and say, okay, maybe I need to start with 5 minutes. So consistency, creativity, and compassion. And if you apply that to putting play in your day, you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to do it for 45 minutes. You just have to put some in your day, a few days a week, starting there.
Yeah, I love that, because I think that oftentimes when it comes to exercise, right, or working out, and I love the way you put it as play, but I think we think that it has to be an hour and a half, 45 minutes or whatever. And I like the way that you put it is just whatever that exercise is that you want to do that's consistent, whether that's 5, 10 minutes, 15. If you're already doing 45, then stay at 45, right? Like, it wouldn't make sense for you to go back to 5 minutes. But just being consistent and doing those things that you enjoy doing. Like, I don't particularly care for running. So to me, 5 minutes worth of running would be like getting my limbs ripped off or something. So, but I love walking. I do love walking. And my wife and I, we go on walks with our kids often, and that's something we enjoy doing. So I like the way that you put it is, how do we play throughout the day? And that's fantastic.
Oh my gosh. So Jason, so if you went on a walk after dinner with your family, you are hitting all 4 pillars.
Yeah.
Because you're getting that movement in there. You are, when you're walking, you're helping that whole digestion process. Research has shown that a 10-minute walk after a meal really helps. It actually helps your cells take up glucose better, so you can push off or become less insulin resistant, which is a precursor to diabetes. And then when you're doing it with your family, that's that emotional energy piece. You're connecting and bonding with your family. And then when you're doing it outside, there's also plants, and being out in nature give off pheromones. They give off plant essence that help to restore your health, your immune system. So, oh my gosh. And then when you have a healthy immune system, you're able to sleep well. So Jason, you're hitting all 4 pillars at one time.
Go, Jason. But I just instantly thought, why wouldn't my family and I, after dinner, go on a 10-minute walk? It's not that long. It's 10 minutes. We're outside. The sun is hitting us. And like you said, we're hitting all of those pillars. So I love that.
So one other thing, Shane, that I talk to my clients about is a gratitude walk, where you grab a friend, and as you're going on that walk, you share something that you're grateful for that happened maybe during the day. And it's an especially great mood builder. And if you're doing it in the evening before you go to bed, that too will help release some of the negative toxicity and the tension, and help you to sleep better.
Yep. So we're using our minds to also help our body at the same time. Beautiful. Love it. Love it.
That's awesome. Jane, this has been such a great conversation, and I think it's very well needed, to talk about these kinds of things that our nutrition, how we take care of our body and our mind, our, even our spirit, right? Like our spiritual side, if that's something you are into. I think that's also important as well. And just moving our body, getting up and moving. We were meant to move. And so thank you for sharing all these great things. So right at the end of our podcast, we always ask two questions. We call it the double down dose. And so I'll ask one question and then Shane will have a follow-up question to that. But we love hope. And so that is everything that is our essence. Shane and I, we believe in hope. We think that there's just not enough of it in the world today. So what is your definition of hope, or how would you define it?
My definition of hope for me is a future thing. And hope isn't something that exists in the past, and it can only be present in the future, or it can only be available in the present if you can look for it in the future. And so having a balanced body, a balanced mind can give you that assurance that hope is attainable. Even if what you're going through at the present moment is not great, when you can fortify your mind and fortify your body, you know that hope is attainable. Yeah. So that would be how I define hope.
I love that description of how you came up with that. So the second part of double down dose is how would you define love?
Oh, love is everything. You know what? Love is love. For most, love is just giving, right? Love isn't receiving. Love is completely giving, unconditionally. That you're giving all that you are, that is love. That is love in a nutshell.
That's awesome. Jane,
Yeah.
I have loved this discussion. I think there's a lot of things that I can take from it personally to help my mind, my body, sleeping. That's something that I like, I have to go to sleep now. But I think you've given me some really valuable things. In the last, is there a way that our listeners can get a hold of you? You had mentioned some videos that you have, or how would they get a hold of you if they'd like to?
Yeah. So my website is the number 4-pillarshealth.com. And there is a free download that has some health hacks, 4 health hacks that can improve your health without adding any more time to your plate, because we are all busy enough. So how do we start creating health without adding a bunch of more time that we currently don't have? And then also on there is my 4-minute full body weight cardio video. And then I do have some other YouTube videos. And then through my website, you can connect with me on my email.
Awesome. That's fantastic. This has been a great conversation. And I really think that there's a lot of things that people can take from it. And I hope that they do take and at least utilize one thing, right? Like maybe don't chew off the entire thing and hit all 4 pillars at the same time, unless you're going to go for a walk with your family after dinner.
There you go.
But, if that's too much for you, maybe start with just something small. Because I think oftentimes we think we've got to do something huge or grand, or I've got to chew off and eat the whole elephant instead of just chewing one bite at a time.
One bite at a time. Yep.
So thanks for all your info today. I'm sure that our listeners will get something out of today's episode.
Good. I hope so. Thank you guys. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed this.
Thank you so much, Jane.